All right, thank you so much for everyone who's come today. I'm really excited to listen about this topic and learn from Nancy today. So please feel free, if you want to introduce yourself in the chat as we go along. Today, our speaker is Nancy Olson. She has worked in the distance education and instructional technology field since 1997 and is an advocate for universal design and ADA compliance. She holds a master's degree from the University of North Dakota in education, instructional design and technology with an emphasis on computer and web-based design. She works at Barstow Community College as the Director of Distance Education and Instructional Technology, where she also serves as the Section 508 officer. She has developed several courses that are licensed using Creative Commons by NCSA. Nancy recognized that universal design and ADA compliance are often scary subjects, and so she created a 4-module course entitled ADA Compliance and Equitable Delivery with Instructional Design, also known as ACEDIT. ACEDIT uses a mnemonic system utilizing the acronym LATCH to teach the top 9 ADA compliance issues and how to avoid and/or correct them. In the next hour, Nancy will explain the LATCH system so you too can join the many other professionals who know that they will never again latch the door on their students. So with that, I will have you, Nancy, take it away.
All right. Hi, guys. What we're going to do today, we're going to look at our agenda first. All right. We're going to go from current slide here. You know, my computer is not listening to me today, so let's go back to the beginning and see if we can flip this way. It is not showing it this way. So I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to just show it to you on the smaller screen because that one I think will stick. I'm sorry about that, but sometimes that's what we have to do. So, because it still says resume slideshow. Let's see if it lets us move now. Perfect. All right. See, it's never a presentation unless you have something go wrong at the beginning or somewhere in there. So we got it out of the way at the beginning. All right, so our agenda today, first we're going to really quickly look at a slide I want you to examine later. It will tell you why we need to be ADA compliant. I don't want to scare you, but there are laws and there are lawsuits, and you don't want either one of those. Then we're going to examine the latch system. We're going to move on then to a demonstration format where I'm going to actually show you how to find accessible templates in Office. And with your newfound knowledge, you'll be able to go, yeah, you say it's accessible, but not here.
Hey, Nancy. Nancy,
yes.
sorry to interrupt you. We're not seeing your screen.
You don't see my screen? You should see it.
No.
Well, that's terrible. Wait a minute. We're going to get there. All right. It's a good thing I was only talking about the agenda. I don't know why you're not seeing it, but I'm going back to the Zoom meeting and we're going to try again. This time we're going to make it work. All right. So now do you see my screen?
Yep. Now we got it.
All right. That's perfect. Next, then we're going to follow up with a demo. We're going to do Microsoft Office accessible templates. You'll be able to tell and correct the errors, hopefully, that you find, because even though they say they're accessible, sometimes they still have little quirks. We're going to create a postcard together. I think that's a good one for glam people because, you know, that you can put this up and people can actually say, I went to this museum and here's my postcards, just by printing it off. We're going to use the ADA checker to do that in both Word and Acrobat. So at the end, you will have a ADA compliant PDF. Now you might ask me why I'm showing you and I hope it moves. Oh, let's try this. Let's go to next. Perfect. All right, I'm gonna have to do it that way. It doesn't like my other screen. So now I'm gonna talk to you about ADA compliance and why it's important by asking you to think about a latch door. And on the other side of the door is all the knowledge you need to succeed in your goal. And you're standing in front of that door and you wonder how everyone else is getting in and out. And you don't realize that you can't because you didn't get the email that told you how to open the door. Well, that's how people who have disabilities feel when you aren't ADA compliant. And we don't want that. Don't latch the door on your audience. And that's what we're going to learn how to avoid. So why be ADA compliant? Well, you can look at all of these laws here, and I want you to examine them later. Maintaining accessibility in museums, federal law, American with Disabilities Act, the federal law, section 508, that's going to cover a lot of you, even though it's about government entities. And then a couple of lawsuits that have been going on lately. Galleries from A to Z sued over websites the blind can't use. And long story short, yes, your library can be sued over its website. Okay, so we're going to talk about the latch system in under an hour. I know it's a complex subject. It's got a lot of facets. It's scary, you know, but it doesn't have to be that way. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to explain the latch system to you. And then we're going to utilize a Microsoft accessible template and the ADA checker. We're going to create an ADA compliant Word document together. We're going to convert that Word document to a PDF, and then we're going to see that there's always 3 errors on any Word document when you convert it to a PDF, and we're going to learn how to correct those as well. All right, so latch is linearization, which is just a fancy word for reading order. Links, lists, alt text tables, color, contrast, and meaning, closed captions, and headers. Now, linearization refers to reading order, and a screen reader used by students who have visual impairments will read information in the order the content creator presents it. The best way to present content is in a simple layout that allows information to flow from left to right and from top to bottom, because that's how we read, right? Left to right, top to bottom. Incorrect linearization more often occurs when you're creating flyers in Word or converting flyers to PDF than it does when creating web pages, unless you're using layout tables. And don't use them because they will mess up the reading order of your page. All right, so here's a linearization example table. This is a layout table, what I was just talking about. And now it's worse than even my header says, because it says basement up, toilets flush must. But what it's really going to say is cell 1 basement, cell 2 blank, cell 3 blank, cell 4 up, exclamation mark, cell 5 toilets, cell 6 toilets, but only if you put in an alt tag. Cell 7 flush, cell 8 blank, cell 9 blank, cell 10 must, cell 11 blank, cell 12 blank. Do you have any idea what I was trying to convey to you? Because I just wouldn't understand. But now if I can see, I'm going to read basement toilets must flush up. And it looks cool, you know, that's cool. But it's not if you can't read. And that's why you don't use layout tables. Now for links should be concise. 1 to 5 words, that's a good length, because it's going to read the whole, it's going to say link and then read everything you made the link. It should never be hidden. That's an old spammer trick. If you ever hide a link on your page, you're a spammer. Whether you know it or not, you're now a spammer. Avoid using the actual address as a web link, because the screen reader is going to read it. So the screen reader is going to read http://www.barstow.edu. Well, that's short, right? But that's like, right? So, but if you make it say Barstow College, and then inside of the Barstow College, you say where they're going, then it says link Barstow College. That's a lot easier to understand. Now, the actual address is okay if you're making printed flyers and the link's short and it makes sense, right? Because then that's the only way they can get there is by having that information. So then you can say http://www.barstow.edu. Now, linked images, they must use alt text to describe the link. So if your image is important to you, don't make it a link, because now you're not supposed to be describing the image. You're supposed to be describing where they're going. So just don't use images for links unless that's the only reason why you're doing it is you look like, I'm sending them to a Van Gogh site and I'm going to use a picture of Van Gogh and it's going to say, Van Gogh site as the alt text, because now you're telling them that they're going there and it makes sense because it's a picture of Van Gogh. For those kind of things, fine. Links, they should be underlined and look distinctive, but the good news for you is that all the programs will make them underlined and look distinctive, and the only way you can screw that up is if you do it by changing it. So just don't change it. That's easy enough, right? Now for lists, the do's and don'ts are you do use lists for key terms and concepts and for organizing like information, for numbered steps. How do I bake the cake? You want a numbered list, additional information links. Here's a bulleted list with 5 more resources. And you use headers to break up long lists. And I'll tell you why in the don't side. Now you don't use lists just to draw attention because that's going to be silly if you have an essay and you've just bulleted all your paragraphs. It's dumb, and it looks dumb. You don't group unlike information. You don't want to have a header that says orange and then list a bunch of apples. People are all going to be confused. You don't create unnecessary sublevels because the screen reader doesn't know it's a sublevel. It just knows it's a bullet. And that's why you use headers. Remember, I tell you this, to break up the long list. You also don't use customized bullets because even though they're really cutesy, all my bullets are rockets. Well, the screen reader now doesn't know it's a bullet because it only knows it when it's a standard bullet. So use the standard bullets. Don't add extra hard returns. Now, it's okay in your PowerPoint to have it look like it's got extra hard returns because the computer is doing it so the screen reader can read it. But if you're making a list in Word, don't you dare go in there and try to hit space in between each one because you're starting and stopping the list every time you do. All right, and finally, and this is the most important rule of law all for lists, do not manually create the list. All programs have a way to do it through the program. Do it through the program. If it doesn't have a way to do it through the program, it's not ADA compliant program, and you shouldn't be using it at all. All right. Now for alt text, every image must have an alt text. And you say to me, but sometimes it's just something cutesy to just, guys, I'm making my page look cool. I'm glamming it up. And that's fine because then you can use an empty alt tag. Now, a lot of programs will say, just click here and make it decorative. If it's there, great, use it. If it's not, remember, 2 quotation marks. That's all you need, 2 quotation marks, and you've marked it as decorative. Now, images can be described within the text surrounding the image, and we'll explore that later in our demonstration. Alt text should never be more than 120 characters. Why? Because you can describe it in the text surrounding the image, and the screen reader stops at 120 characters. Do not use image of or graphic of because the screen reader says that. Depending on the screen reader, it might say image of, it might say graphic of, but if you add it to the image alt text as well, now it says image of, or image of, graphic of, or graphic of, image of, or graphic of, graphic of. And you don't want that. That's just terrible. No, don't do that. When creating alt text, it's really important to consider the content and the function. So you're creating your alt text, you need to say to yourself, what is the content I'm describing and what is the function of the image, both of them. And you need function trumps content. It sucks if you're like artistic and you want to really describe something and link to something, then don't do it. Make your link underneath the image because function trumps content. All right, and table do's and don'ts. So do use the table caption, header rows and or columns. You can use header rows, columns, or header rows and columns. Use percentages, not pixels for width, and I'll tell you why in a second. Use tables to sort and display your data. Don't try to do a bunch of columns to display your data. That's just, no, that's bad. Even if you're cited, it's bad. Don't nest your data tables. Don't leave the upper left-hand corner cell blank when you have header rows and columns. It's hard at first, but if you stop and think about what's the function of the column, you can title that column. I promise you can. Don't use more than 5 columns and don't merge or split table cells. So let's go back to 3 of these. You use percentages and not pixels for width, because if you use percentages, the screen resolution, even if you're cited, it's really cool. It will shrink it down to the size of your screen and you won't be scrolling back and forth like this. No one wants to do that. Your information is, they'll just give up, And then don't use more than 5 columns because it's the same thing. Remember I said it's going to shrink it down? Well, when it shrinks it down, if you got 20 columns, it's down and it's like 2-point font. No one can read that. Come on. So they're back to scrolling back and forth. No one wants to do that. If you need more than 5 columns, make more than 1 table. All right, so, and you don't merge or split table cells because screen readers don't recognize that. And so now you've screwed up reading order. And you don't want to do that. Linearization matters. Layout tables, first, just don't use them. But they're bad. But if you absolutely have to, the reason why they're typically used is to overcome visual presentation limitations in HTML. They're an old trick. I know I'm an old lady. Trust me, they're old trick, but don't do it. Layout tables should never have a table caption or header rows and columns because you're hiding the fact they're tables, okay, which is bad in itself, but don't then make it worse by captioning it. They can cause reading order problems. They often do. But if you're going to use them, keep them simple. They tell you now that it's even bad to say 2 columns, picture here and description there. That's even bad. They don't even like you doing that anymore. Don't nest your layout tables. Don't ever nest tables. Nesting tables is putting a table inside a table. It's confusing even if you can see. Linearization is, once again, a fancy word for reading order, and I repeat things so that you'll help remember them. Now, in reading order, it's important when using layout tables. So if you absolutely feel like, even though it's bad, but you really want to have that gallery with images and then the text after it, at least make sure that you put the image first and the text after, because that's how people who see would like it. And so you want to have it be the same as a normal thing, because that's how the screen reader is going to read it. All right, now captioning do's and don'ts. You do use proper punctuation. You use upper and lowercase letters. You preserve and identify your slang and accents. How? I'll tell you in a second. You don't ever obscure your on-screen text or your other essential video elements. So you'll notice that on the bottom of the PowerPoint, there's room for captioning. Don't put important stuff on the very bottom. Your captions are going to obscure it, and that's bad. Don't forget that you always have to fix, not only check, but fix your automated captions because they need to be accurate. And even the best ones are about 90%. And you don't want to be like, I was once in a major conference and somebody was up there and their screen ended up saying that, you know, so-and-so is in bed because they were trying to say in bed. They embedded a document and they ended up being in bed, and that wasn't good for them. Don't forget to add non-speech sounds in square brackets. So if you remember those slangs and accents, you can put that they're there in a bracket, and you can put things like somebody drove by and blasted me out of my presentation with music. You put that in there with brackets because they deserve to know what's going on just like everyone else. All right, we're moving on to the next one, which is color contrast and meaning. Okay, here's the do's and don'ts. They're really simple. Now you're saying keep a white background with dark text, but mine's light blue. It's light blue for you guys because even though I fall really hard on the logic side of the spectrum, but I come from a really artistic family, so I understand that artistic people like color a lot, right? And so I picked a very light blue background, and I made sure that that background was 4.5 or to 1 ratio for my font. And if it was 14 point and 3.1 ratio, if it was 18 point. All right, so you want to make sure that you use at least 14 point font, bolded, if it's going to be colored, and some colors you should never use, like a light yellow text is just not a good idea. Use 18 point font with color. You don't have to bold it, but you do need to make it 18 points. All right. Use color as the sole indication of an important element. You never do that, because if you are colorblind and you say the most important information about my archive is in red text, and they look at that page and they're red, green, colorblind, they don't know what the most important information is, and you've lost your audience. Instead, say something like, the most important information has an asterisk and is in red. Okay, now it's 2 variables and everybody can find the asterisk. Okay, but here's the thing. If you have multiple asterisks and you say most important information, they're still kind of stuck. That's why they used to use footnotes. Don't use a dark highlight with dark text because people can't read it. I hate websites like that. I'm sure you've found them and you hate them too. Don't use the light text with a light background. Same reason, can't read it. All right, for headings, headings are used to set the hierarchy for a page. And So the title is heading 1, and that's the most important thing, because if I know what it's about, then I can decide if I want to read it, right? So heading 1 is your title. You only use it once. Headings delineate the topics and their relative importance. So then from heading 1, which is your title, we have 2, 3, and 4. Heading 2 are your major topics. Heading 3 are the topics underneath your major topics, so your subtopics. And heading 4s are if you have subtopics, and you cannot skip them. So you have to go heading 1 to heading 2, heading 2 to heading 3, heading 3 to heading 4. You can go from heading 2 to heading 3 and then heading 3 to heading 2, because you're going back to a major subtopic. Where you don't want to do is like heading 1 to heading 3. Finally, this is really cool about screen readers. You can use screen readers. They use the headings to skip to specific topics. So someone with a screen reader can actually say, read the headings to me. They'll read the headings. And if you're talking about Van Gogh on page 30 of 50 artists, I can say, Van Gogh, that's where I want to go. And it'll take me there. And that's cool, because now I don't have to sit there in the screen reader and read 30 pages of stuff to find where Van Gogh is, right? Nobody wants to do that. It also is cool because in Word, it'll turn it into a table of contents and an index for you. Now, oh, I caught myself. I'm good today. All right, so let's see. Is it possible to learn those 8 topics for a latch by memory? Let's hope so. Linearization, links, lists, alt tags, tables, color, contrast and meaning, closed captions, and headers. All you need to remember, that's 8. You know, it's 9 really, because color has 2, but it's all right. We threw them together. It's a simple one. So 8 topics, latch, and then you will always be able to be ADA compliant, right? All right. So was I right? Linearization, lists, links, alt tags, tables, closed captions, colors, and headers. And once again, here's our door without a knob, because now we have all aced it, and we all know that we don't want to ever latch the door on our audience, and we will never do it again. All right, now we're going to go next one more time. This is an actual course. You only got a presentation from the course, but it's a 4-unit course. It's offered under a CC attribution non-commercial share alike license. If you would like to have access to this, download it, modify it, do whatever it does to make it work for your audience, just email us at this email address, dg_onlineoffice@barstow.edu, and we will get it out to you. By the way, I'm reading these email addresses, because if you don't, and I couldn't see, and you're giving a presentation, they don't know what it is. All right, so this presentation, the templates, and the latch instructional material will all be available for download and viewing at the OER public site. And you will receive a copy of this PowerPoint, so you'll be able to download that if you want to. All right, we're going to end this part of the presentation, because we now need to move on to our second one, which is going to be an actual demonstration of how to create an ADA accessible document. So let me share my screen again. All right, are you guys seeing a postcard with trees?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. All right, so first let me show you how, remember I promised you this, to find accessible templates. So you go File and New, you come down here, you click in here, and you know, they didn't hire me for my typing skills, but I'm trying. All right, accessible templates, you hit enter. It's searching for thousands of online templates. I do want to let you know that just because these are here and they say they're accessible, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are all the way accessible. Now, the one I'm going to share with you, the postcard one, it was 8 tables and I had to fix it to be all the way accessible, but it will be now. So here it is. Beautiful, right? This is what one of the things that you would like to advertise your museum, your library, your gallery, your archive. You need to have a good way to do it. Let's show them some beautiful images. Now to do that, let's back up, right click, change picture. Ah, see, Nancy screwed it up, but I'm coming back from it. So we're going to review and check accessibility as we go. Now, what that does is it shows you over here that no accessibility issues were found so far. We're going to break it. All right, so we right click, we change picture on this device. Okay. And of course, it always brings you back to where it wants you to go because that's the way the world works, right? Computers do what they want. But we're going to get to where I've saved these images. And while I'm doing this, just so you know, it does matter. These are the orientation of the image. You don't want to use a portrait, you want to use a landscape because portraits are not going to work right with this particular item. Now we're going to go ahead. I'm going to put in a beautiful coastline here. Isn't that beautiful? We love it. And the problem is that, oh, I'm missing an object description. I've broken my template already. Oh, and you thought I was a master. Well, let's see if I can fix it. All right, so I'm going to copy the caption because I already had the caption done. I'm going to paste this caption in here. All right, now I'm telling them, and you should always, this is a public domain image. People still deserve their attribution. Always do your attributions. All right, now we're going to right click again. We're going to change the second picture on this device. We're going to choose this alien kind of landscape here. To me, it looks alien, but the image says that it's a coast landscape with the setting sun, which that's cool. All right. Sometimes, just so you know, you can't get rabbit right away. You got to just be careful. Yeah, but we'll get there. Ah, I'm telling you, the older you get, the more you don't like using the mouse. Here you go. I'm going to paste this one in. All right, we've changed two of them, and you'll notice that now I've messed up two things on my document. We're going to right click again. We're going to change this picture on this device. We're going to choose this beautiful, like orangish one that I have here. I'm going to grab the next caption. That's always important. Always do your attribution. All right, we're going to put in our attribution here on the bottom. I'll paste it in. All right, now we're going to change one last one. We want to have all of ours. We're going to right click, change picture on this device. This time we're going to choose a national landscape. So national park, didn't tell me which one, but probably somebody smarter than me knows. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and make sure we don't select our picture, just the line, or we will lose our picture. All right, and there we go. So now we have this, but we have 4 errors. How do we fix them? Missing object description means you're missing the alt text. You can right click and you can go to view alt text, or you can click on this and look how cool it tells you what the recommended actions are. In this case, it is add a description. So we're going to click on that. Now, you might think the right thing to do is to add like the caption, right? Because that would be cool that now we're giving the person who can't see the same information as we're giving the other person. But the screen reader is going to read what's underneath the image. And so you don't want it to read it twice because that's really duplicative and that's not fair to them. So instead, we're going to say image described below. I always like to put directly below. My friend only does below, but image described directly. See below. Here we go. Now we can copy and paste this because we know it's going to be the same for all of them. The cool thing is it's going to leave this open for me. So look, I click on this one, it's another error, but I can just paste it in. Control V to paste, right click to paste, either one works. We're going to go ahead, we're going to paste it in again. We're going to do it one last time, 4th image, we're going to paste it in. Now we're going to go back and we're going to review and check accessibility again, right? Because we want to make sure that we fixed what was broken. Oh, look, we did. No accessibility issues were found. So the people with disabilities, they should be able to read this document as long as you leave it in Word. But say you don't want to leave it in Word because it's really easy to mess up a document in Word. And once you do that, it's really hard to fix, right? And so you're like, I don't really want to leave it in Word. So what you can do is you can make it a PDF. But when you make it a PDF, you never want to print to PDF. And the reason why is it flattens the PDF. And by flattening the PDF, the screen reader can no longer read the elements. So instead, you want to save it as a PDF. So it's going to say, do you want to save? Well, let me move this over here so you can see. Do you want to save it before continuing? Now, it was nice of it to catch that because I actually want to save this template. So I'm going to do a save as, which also will work. Now I'm going to make this postcards 12 because believe it or not, I've done this presentation a few times. And then I'm going to go ahead and save it as a Word document. Didn't change anything. Now we're going to go ahead. We've got postcards 12 on here and we're going to save as again. And you can do save as or save as Adobe PDF. Either one works. We're going to save it as a PDF. All right. Do you guys see the PDF on my screen?
No, we still see the Word document.
All right, and let me stop my share and I will show you the other one because we want to make sure that you see the right thing. Otherwise, I'm worse than the worst of the non-compliant people. All right, now do you see the screen?
Yep, we
Yes.
see it. Mhm.
Okay, perfect. Now, the very first time that you open up a PDF, PDFs, by the way, are pains in the ass, and I'm not going to pull my words on that one because they're very difficult to make compliant. You want to make it compliant in the primary program. So you want to make it compliant in Word and then fix what you have to in the PDF. You don't want to leave it uncompliant in Word and then try to fix it in the PDF because not only is it a pain in the ass, but then you have to fix it every single time. If you fix it in the Word document, it stays fixed, okay? It doesn't in the PDF. That's why you want to fix everything you can in the PDF. But 3 errors are always going to occur. So how do I even find that? I go to Tools, and I come down here, and there's Accessibility. Once you've opened it, it always remains open on your sidebar unless you choose to manually close it here, and then just opening it again puts it back. All right, so now we're going to go back here. We're going to click on this little purple man and we're going to run an accessibility check. Okay, so we're just going to do start checking. And it says there are 3 issues, and there are always going to be 3 issues with the PDF. And that's because of how PDFs are created. Now, the very first one is logical reading order, and we're going to leave that for last. I think they should reorder these, but that's okay for us. The title has failed, and the title is always going to fail. You right click on it, right click on title failed, and then you do fix this. Now, even though I put in a title on my Word document that says Postcards from Nancy, it just doesn't recognize it until I do that. Now it's passed, see? So I fixed that one. Now this one, color contrast needs a manual check, and we don't have time in this presentation, but if we did, we would go through the WebAIM color checker. That's WebAIM color checker, and I would show you how to work it so that you could always ensure that if you love colors and background colors, that they are sufficient contrast. But for the purpose of this presentation, we know that it is because it's black text on a white background, and that will always be ADA compliant, which is why we love to use it. So we can just right click and pass that. 2 of them done. Oh, but the third one is a little bit of work. All right, so we're going to go to reading order here and reading order, because that's what it says over here is still wrong. Logical reading order. We have to check it manually. The program, it's not smart enough to know how to do it. So we did reading order. We're going to show the order panel, and then we're going to close it. Now our order panel here, it's showing that there's only one tag here, that it's considering this all as one thing. So it's going to read from left to right and top to bottom. Now on page 2, whoops, it shows that, oh, look, it's got 3 of them. And what's this one? This one's just weird. It's just hanging out there. When you click on it, it should bring you to it. It doesn't appear to be doing anything. It's just a little 2 down here in the corner. When that happens, what you can do is you can right click on it and you can delete that selected item structure. It just makes it a clearer, easier thing for your screen reading people to be able to read it that way. You fixed your reading order. You know you fixed it because You've manually done it. So now you have to come back over to accessibility check again. Yep, again, and start checking. You can see that it's kept the first two fixes. My title is fine. My color contrast is fine. Now that I've manually checked my logical reading order, I can pass that as well. This is now an ADA compliant Word document or PDF, but I need to make sure that I save my changes, of course. So I'm going to click save, because if I don't, then it's not going to be ADA compliant, right? So I need to save my changes, and I am done, and I will stop my share and see if there are any questions.
Feel free to unmute if you'd like.
Hi. Are these tools available in Google Docs and other platforms?
Google Docs does have an accessibility checker now. It's just not quite as advanced as the other ones, but all ADA checkers, that's why you have to learn Latch, because all ADA checkers, they check certain components. All of them check different things, but none of them check them all. It's unfortunate. That's a great question, though.
Thank you so much.
Can I ask Nancy about that to follow up just a bit here? Does Google still use Grackle? Is that what it's using, or something else now?
I don't know. I would have to look. I don't use Google very often, because for a long time, Google had a lot of compliancy issues. It's a shame, because it is free, but it does have compliancy issues. And because I have access to more compliant programs, those are the ones I use. But what I will do is I will look it up, and I will send an email to Shauna and let her know what I find out, and you guys can share it with everyone for the Google Docs, because I do know a lot of people have to use it. Okay, guys, I know I gave you guys a whole bunch of information okay, this is a really good question. Do publishers usually take care to include alt text for images and publications? And the answer is no. When you get publishers materials, if you are a teacher and you get publishers materials, the odds are really good that they are not ADA compliant. Just like if you go in and you search for just a template, like say you go in and you want to make business cards. And so you just do a search in Microsoft Office or in Google for business cards for a template. It's not going to be ADA compliant. That's why you want to start your search with accessible templates. And when you do when you grab your publisher's materials, you kind of want to go through them with an eye for the latch components. I'll make sure that they have access to these slides, and I'm also, I strongly encourage anybody who wants to download the whole class. The whole class covers how to caption and how to use Microsoft Word and Adobe, and as well as how to use Canvas Studio and YouTube. So it's a nice little course, and it's free. So you can go through it at your own pace and kind of go, oh, I get all this now. So that's a nice feature. The other one is, let me see, I will pull up and put this one directly into the chat for you, is the location of the public YOER site, because that one will actually have this presentation and the template that I used today for you. I had to fix the template a little bit, so it is a little bit different, the version up there now, but I'll correct it after this meeting to make sure that you have the newest version that is completely ADA compliant no matter which one you go to. So that's always helpful. All right, so that's the site to the YOER. It's a public site, so you should all have access without having to log in. Are there any other questions?
I have a couple.
Okay.
So you were just talking about some tools that would be helpful to learn regarding accessibility. Are there any specific tools you haven't mentioned, for checking color correction, composition, things like that, that would be useful for accessibility?
I really like for color correction and for color contrast, I really like WebAIM. WebAIM is free to everybody, so that's always a good deal. And it does a really good job of telling you if your colors are contrasting correctly. My associate wanted to let you guys know, and so I'm glad you brought this up, that WebAIM actually does a better job than Word does because it's more picky. And so you'll be absolutely sure that it's correct with WebAIM. Now, the other thing is that another one is like in Canvas, there's a little like man. I can show you him if you want. If any of you have access to Canvas, there is a little guy. He looks like a man, just like kind of like, and that's typically, if you look on your screen, it seems to be becoming the default for built-in ADA checkers to make it look like a little guy. But you can click on the built-in ADA checker in Canvas, and it does a pretty good job of some things, and other things it completely ignores. And that's the problem, and that's why you have to learn and practice Latch, because no ADA, I have not found an ADA checker yet that does a good job at all 8 components.
Thank you. And then I was also wondering, so you've sort of talked about, Latch for sure,
Mhm.
and different ways that we can maybe approach things that we do in our everyday life, like you showed one example with the template, but are there also certain workflows for writing emails, social media posts, creating slide decks, things like that, that you would suggest regarding accessibility? And do you need, when you're designing it for accessibility, do you also think about where that specific product is going to be used or output would be used?
Yes, that's true. You do need to think about how it's going to be used. Just like in my example where I said use the actual URL on a flyer, because it's going to be a physical media. So that definitely makes a difference. Another thing is when you're writing an email, you need to stop and think. You can't assume when you're writing an email that people can see and or hear what's in your email. So you should always follow the rules of Latch. That's what makes Latch so versatile, is that it works across all the programs, because it's not teaching you how to use the programs, which is very limiting, because then you have to learn how to use the program. Over every new program, you have to learn again. And if it misses something, you don't know. But if you remember the 8 tenets of Latch, and then all you have to do is keep that in your brain, and you'll know if it's skipping things. There's 2 or 3 color checkers. If you put in color checker, it's going to give you 2 or 3 ones. I just like WebAIM because I think it's the easiest one to use. Most management information systems, they also will have, not manage, but most programs like web content management, there you go, will also have a built-in ADA checker. The problem that I've seen, and I've looked at a lot of them, is that they don't cover them all. But yes, and when you're giving a presentation, there are rules to giving a presentation actually as well. Like, even though you put things on the screen, you want to cover the content on the screen, because they may not be able to see it. WebAIM does have other checkers. I do believe it does. But its primary one that I use it for is for color contrast. But like in my last slide where I read to you the actual email address, I did that because if you are not a sighted user, you only know what the person is saying. You don't know what the screen is saying because you can't see. And vice versa, you shouldn't deviate too much from your slides, because if you are a sighted person but you can't hear and you deviate and you have too little information on your slides, then you're not presenting equivalent experience to those who can't hear. That's why one of the first things I did when I came on was to turn on closed captioning, because closed captioning helps people who can't hear well, right? So that they're hearing it and they can kind of listen to everything I say. So always turn on the Zoom closed captioning. Before they had closed captioning, they were not ADA compliant. Another good thing is if you are in charge of buying anything for your place of business, what you want to make sure that you do is before you buy that program, you want to ask them for their VPAT. It's a voluntary product accessibility template. Well, the real name, everybody calls them VPATs, and that's what the vendors will know them by. So just ask for their VPAT. Go through that and understand that if the VPAT says all over the place, not aligned, not available, that's not something that you should encourage your place of business to purchase, because sooner or later you're going to get in trouble, because the thing, either the content you create with it won't be accessible, or the program itself isn't accessible, and somebody's going to need to use it who can't, and they'll sue you, and you don't want that. So VPATs are very important.
And kind of tagging on to that, like I know at my institution, we do ask for VPATs and things like that when we're buying new software, that kind of thing. But do you have any suggestions for how to work with accessibility when your colleagues may not be as interested in it as you are?
It's very frustrating. I agree, because you see things come across your desk and you know that they're not ADA compliant. And for me, I guess I channeled my frustration into teaching everybody that I know the components of Latch. I'm up to the majority of my faculty all know and use Latch, and we have a classified event in the summer, a gamified course that we give out prizes and we teach them about Latch. I think that rather than being frustrated, you learn the components of Latch and you gently remind people what they are when you see things like a really common one is people will send out a flyer and it's just an image, right? Well, that's not fair. I have no problem emailing back and going, your flyer is an image and I can't see well enough. I can't read that. Can you send it to me in text? And if you do that a lot to your colleagues, pretty soon your colleagues go, oh God, I'm not even going to send out an image file because Nancy will just say, she can't see. But it works, right? So it's a shared responsibility, ADA compliance. And if they the way they sue people is they sue the institution and they sue the author. So you're helping them out by telling them. And that's all you can do is, help them out, tell them, maybe download that whole course and put it up on your Canvas website. Or if you don't have Canvas, let me know. I'll download all of them as Word documents and send them to you, because it's very important that people start becoming ADA conscious. You never know when it'll be you.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Does anyone else have a last question or two for Nancy? Feel free to unmute if you'd like.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was absolutely amazing. And like some of others have said, like you're a great presenter. I was just wondering if you had some feedback on like presentations. So I do a lot of information literacy sessions and I use the notes area in PowerPoint just to write out my speaking notes and as well as like the searches I'm doing. Are there any considerations I need to take to make things as accessible? Because I also share the PowerPoints with the students and instructors afterwards.
Well, the good news is that you can actually go into the PowerPoint program and search for accessible templates, and that's where I would start. because that way you're at least starting with a more compliant template. A lot of PowerPoints are absolutely not compliant. Using the notes section is okay because they're going to be able to read that, right? Especially if you're sending it to them later. And for me, I think the best is that all of the programs, Excel is the worst at it, but you can actually hit review on your PowerPoint and accessible, and then it's going to make sure that your PowerPoint is also accessible, or it's going to do it the best that it can. So you're gonna, you're gonna make sure that you go through and you think to yourself, it might not exactly catch the color contrast, so I don't want to be too close. So I'm going to make sure that I'm using black and a light color and not, black and dark green, because that could be bad, but it might not get picked up because the color checker, the best one is WebAIM for making sure it's compliant. But do start with my tips are start with the accessible template, run the review the whole time you're doing it, because it's going to remind you if you forget an alt tag or you do something it doesn't like. And then when you're done, absolutely, that's brilliant. Keep putting everything in notes because that helps the audience to have that additional information later.
Awesome. Thank you.
Does anyone else have another question? I think we have time for one more. All right, I'm not hearing anything. I want to thank you, Nancy, for a fabulous presentation and for all the knowledge you've given us today. And thank you everyone who has joined today too. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.